So I was asked to come and give a big picture overview of the work on Bald Head Island. And we're going to kind of go back and forth because this work really falls under Scott's purview. So I'll share some information on the slides and I'll ask Scott to, if he'd like to kind of give additional color on the perspective, or if I've left something out, please share. Next slide, please. So what I'll cover briefly today is the Duke Energy progresses upgrades to the energy infrastructure on Bald Head Island, the key tenets or benefits for customers here on Bald Head Island, the key pieces of work completed already, as well as the primary work remaining to this project, and really the last but most important, thank you for your patience as we perform this work on the island to improve service. Next slide. So really, why are we doing this work? Why is it required? And really, Duke Energy is working hard to make sure that the energy infrastructure serving the Bald Head Island community is reliable for our customers now and in the future. Improvements will help harden our system to storms and allow for isolation of outages and remote automatic repairs. So I think that really sums up and gives a good idea of the overview. Really, the key tenets of the work that's being performed, it's four focus area. We really want to improve the reliability of the services here on the island. We want to strengthen the grid as well. But we also want to expand for solar and renewable opportunities as they develop and come down the pipeline. And it also gives our customers more options and control from a repairs perspective, but also more ability to control their energy usage. These grid improvement initiatives are focused again on our customers. They're data-driven to help manage costs, and I'll ask you to speak to that a little bit. And most important, they're strategic and targeted to make sure that we maximize the value in the work that we're doing. So I'll circle back and let Scott talk a little bit about how we're making decisions on the work that we're doing here on the island.
Yeah, so you know, our focus has been, you know, we want to try to kind of get the most bang for the buck as we make decisions about where we are making these grid investments. And you know, one of the key things we look at is, you know, our reliability measures for our customers. How long does it take to restore power at a given location? How frequently do they have outages? And that really led us to say, you know, we need to make a significant investment on Bald Head. And so that's really kind of the genesis of why we have been over here working on this project now for going on, I guess, about 3 years. And it's really just, you know, looking at the entire Duke Energy system, recognizing this is an area where we have an opportunity to really make a significant improvement in the level of service that our customers you know, experience from us. So definitely a lot of, I think, to Pam's point, kind of data behind you know, where we're making those investment decisions. And obviously, you know, we'll probably talk a little bit more about it. When you look at the scope of work we're performing on the island, you know, we're obviously not able to replace every single span of cable and replace every single piece of equipment on the island, but looking at kind of the key backbone infrastructure to make sure that, again, when we're doing work, spending money, we're going to get as much possible benefit for our customers as we can.
So I'll pause there. Any questions so far? Next slide, please. So the key pieces of work that we've already completed today, we've replaced and extended the main underground power lines on the island. We've upgraded switchgear. We've added some new switching equipment that can automatically reroute power. We've installed new smart meters as well. Enhanced approximately 50 overhead power poles. And we've installed approximately 30 new poles on the overhead portion of the main line that begins in Smithfield and runs a submarine to the island. So can you kind of translate?
Absolutely. Yeah, all that is obviously that is off the island, but your main power feed to the island. You know, we had a couple of, I think April's ago had a couple of poles fall over there in a windstorm, and kind of recognized, you know, that overhead line that comes and feeds the island there to Caswell Beach was really not storm hardened in a way that it needs to be. in order to help to keep that as reliable as possible. So that's where all of about 80 new much more robust structures were installed, replaced on that line, so that it is what we would consider storm hardened and able to we shouldn't have the type of failure that we had a couple of years ago that caused a pretty lengthy outage for the entire island. One other item I'll highlight here is smart meters. We performed that work. I feel like it was probably about a year ago. Now it was right after COVID started, so probably 2020. But as Pam was talking about, how are we setting the grid up for the future and to give our customers more control? That smart meters are foundational to that, as we start looking at how customers having home solar, battery storage, all of that kind of thing that's coming out, that helps to control, helps us have control around those devices, manage customers' rates, start to give customers time of use rates in the futures that will help to incorporate all of that distributed generation into our distribution system. So all of this is it's all a big picture to really prepare the grid for where we're going to be 5-10 years from now with some of those technologies.
And Scott, I just want to go back to one other point with the 80 poles that were installed or upgraded. Are those wooden poles or are those metal poles?
They are still wooden poles,
okay.
But they're what we call a much higher class of poles. So they're much bigger, thicker, stronger, buried deeper. Again, from a storm hardening perspective, significantly higher safety factor wind margin with the way that line is now constructed.
Okay, great. Next slide, please. Okay, let's go back one. Sorry, ever. Okay, I'm ready. Go forward. Primary work remaining. While a lot of the visible work on the island is concluding in the next year, there are important updates to our operating system taking place. For instance, adding 3 automatic switches that are being custom manufactured for the island. This isolation is the first of its kind in Duke Energy Carolinas, and they'll be delivered to the island. Is that correct? Talk a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So, one of the key opportunities that we've had in the past with the island is, really anytime you kind of think we met with a few of you guys back in the fall and kind of described it like you've got an interstate highway, that brings power to the island. And then once it's here, all branches out, little secondary roads to all the different neighborhoods on the island. And we put a lot of focus on kind of rebuilding that main loop interstate highway, if you will, of the electric grid around the island. And in the past, if we had a cable failure, somebody dug into something, a piece of equipment failed, we would have to get people on our boat, come over here. It was a multiple hour process to get people here, figure out where the trouble was, isolate it, and get that back on. Now with these pieces of equipment, they'll be able to identify where did that cable failure occur, where did somebody dig into it, what happened, and isolate that section and restore power. In most cases, probably to the entire island, where before it would have been all or half of the island out, for a multiple hour time period. So really putting that focus on the main backbone of the energy grid, so that we've got those abilities to remotely monitor the status and allow the equipment to isolate any kind of damage or faults that occur on the system.
And lastly, upgrading switches serving the southeast portion of the island and connecting the existing underground lines to create isolation of outages and the ability to reroute power.
Yeah, and one of the other opportunities that we've been trying to address is scenarios where we have what we call a radial feed. So we have just, when we typically design an underground system, which of course all of our system here on the island is underground, we like to do it in a loop, so that if there is some kind of, again, failure, dig in, something like that, even within a residential neighborhood that maybe has 20 or 30 customers, we can quickly come, find where that damage occurred, isolate it, and get all of those customers back in service. We have a lot of locations on the island, the way that the original infrastructure was installed, where we have those customers just in a radial feed. So the only way to get them back on if a cable failure occurs is to dig it up and fix it. And, that becomes a multiple hour process instead of a fairly brief process. And so we're looking for all of those opportunities to take those radial lines and create loops. Again, just, we can't obviously prevent the power from ever going out, but doing things that when that does happen, we don't have some of these very extended outages like the island has experienced over the years.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right, next slide. So again, we thank you for your patience and we appreciate the support as we continue to make these upgrades. So I threw in this interesting picture because I thought it was very fascinating. So I said, Scott, I want you to kind of dig into this and explain why this is such a great tool that the crews are using on the island so that the digging will not be so intrusive as they're making these repairs.
Yeah, so this is and I'm sure most of you have seen these out and about all over the island, what we call a directional boring rig. And, we have two options when we install new conduits and new cables. It's either backhoe digging up an open trench, which is obviously very obtrusive for, very damaging to the environment, with an area like the island, or directional boring, which is, a pretty unique piece of equipment that, tunnels through the ground from point to point. So you just have to dig holes every few hundred feet and allows us to, really try to minimize the damage to the island environment. So it is a slow process. Again, as we've seen, we've been over here working now for about 3 years. It takes a long time, but it allows us to achieve the result that you're looking for. And, as Pam alluded to, we're looking to try to have all of our work wrapped up by the end of this year. But what you will see more of, the majority of this kind of work is completed. So what we're going to be doing this year is what I would consider is more kind of the technical types of work. We'll have crews that are over here terminating cables, switching cables around. There's not going to be a lot more of the digging, excavating type of work. So you'll see a lot of people over here working, but it absolutely should be less intrusive to traffic flow and other things than what we have been doing up until this point. And again, like we really appreciate the collaboration, Chris and his team and all the residents on the island to help us be successful with these upgrades.
So that concludes the presentation, and I'll open up for any questions that you all may have.
I want to thank you for coming. You guys are just here. Is it October?
Sometime in the fall. Yeah.
And, it's, I don't know how much your story was heard back in October, and that's why I really wanted you here. I wanted you here today, just so it's recorded, because, we see the trucks every day, all day, and people need to know what's going on. And the thing that gets lost, sometimes you see what, Mastic? Is that the
Mastic.
Yes.
Mastic. I mean, we see their trucks, we don't see Duke on the side of the truck. And so it's important for people to make that jump and understand, the level of investment that you've been making. That's great. Excited about it.
Absolutely.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, Scott, like to make a quick comment. As a former and now retired Duke Energy employee, I want to commend you, Pam and Scott, for all the effort you and your team have been doing on the island. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of difficult work, and it takes a lot of time. I mean, when Progress Energy first installed, or CPL, I guess, way back, the infrastructure on island, there was hardly anything anywhere. So it was easy to lay underground cabling back then, but as developed as the island has gotten, with all the other utilities that are now underground, it becomes a lot more complex and a lot more difficult to bury these cables. And in this case, as Scott mentioned, directionally bore these runs. So hats off to you, and appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to come and give the update and share this story. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
So we'll see you in 2 months.
That video. We won't see you at all, because we'll be all done.
That's right.
That's the hope.
But just a reminder that Danielle Peoples, the Duke Energy Public Information Officer, does send routine updates to Karen that we include in our Village Voice updates. So we share those and try to keep folks abreast of the ongoings of this project. So thank you.
And I will leave several of my business cards in case someone needs to reach me. I'm sure I'm available.
Great, thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.